We started casually. Emma was different. She wasn't like anyone I'd dated before. She was spontaneous, unpredictable, and a bit chaotic. It was refreshing at first. She tells stories that felt like performances, wild and funny. Her energy was contagious, and I found myself enjoying her chaos. She worked part-time as a hairdresser and helped her cousin with an online clothing shop. She was always on the go, always moving. I liked her, I did. But something about her never quite felt settled. She had this way of living that was a little too disorganized for me. I liked things clean, simple, and predictable. And yet, I went along with it. We spent more time together, getting closer. But we never talked about living together. It wasn't something I was ready for. Emma didn't push either. She'd come over, crash after a long shift or when things at home weren't great. It was fine. We never officially moved in together. She'd spend a night or two here and there, and that was it. But then, one day, we swapped keys. It wasn't a big deal, or at least that's how it felt. We didn't have a talk about boundaries. We just agreed, text before coming over. Simple, right? We didn't have to complicate it. I thought we were on the same page. I thought everything was working fine. But looking back, I should have noticed the little things. There were moments that felt off, but I ignored them. I never asked about her home life, never pushed for details. She was always vague when it came to her family. She'd never invite me to her place. When I asked to meet her family, she'd change the subject. She'd make excuses. Once, she said her parents were busy with something, so I left soup at her door. Another time, she claimed they were remodeling their house and couldn't host guests. I let it slide. I didn't think much of it. I didn't want to be controlling. She had her privacy, and I respected that. But now, looking back, I see the red flags. She always carried around a massive tote bag. She'd joke that it was just in case, but I never really questioned it. She was always prepared, or so I thought. There were also the little things. She never let me tag her in photos on social media. She said it was for privacy reasons, that her family didn't know about us yet. I didn't mind. I wasn't big on social media either. But these small things piled up. I let her control the narrative, without even realizing it. I didn't ask the hard questions. I didn't want to rock the boat. But now, I wish I had. It's funny how you don't see the truth until it smacks you in the face. I wasn't prepared for what was about to happen. And when it did, everything changed. About 3 weeks ago, I had a work job out of town. It wasn't far, just about a 4-hour drive. I had to stay for a week to finish a big contract. The dealership needed all their inventory cleaned up for summer. I told Emma I'd be gone, left the key on the counter. I reminded her, as always, to text if she needed to stay at my place. She said she might come over Saturday night if she was too tired to drive home. I left early Monday morning. I figured I'd surprise her when I got back. I was done with the job early, ahead of schedule. I called my crew and told them we could leave the job site sooner. They didn't mind. So Friday morning, I decided to head home. I wanted to surprise Emma, maybe cook dinner, watch a movie. I hadn't seen her in a few days. I missed her, weirdly. I hit the road early at 6:00 a.m. I stopped for gas and made my way home. I got there around 9:15 a.m. When I pulled up, something felt off. I noticed the curtains were closed. I always leave them half open, especially on the balcony side. Not a huge deal, but it felt strange. Then I saw something else, a pack of diapers peeking out from my recycling bin. I don't have kids. I don't know anyone who has kids who would visit me. I stared at the building, confused, trying to make sense of it. I walked up to my door and was about to unlock it. Suddenly, I heard something from inside. A thud, then the sound of little feet running. Then a child's cry. A full-on toddler meltdown. "Give me juice, I want juice," the kid kept yelling. 5 times in a row. I stepped back. I looked at the number on my door again. I thought I might have gone to the wrong apartment. But no, it was mine. I texted Emma. "Hey, I'm back, you home?" No reply. I unlocked the door slowly, unsure of what to expect. And when I stepped inside, I froze. My apartment had been completely transformed. It looked like a preschool waiting room. Juice spilled everywhere. Not just a small spill. It looked like someone emptied 3 juice boxes on my couch. Toys were scattered everywhere. In the middle of this chaos, there was a half-naked toddler. The kid was holding my remote, screaming about SpongeBob. The kid looked at me like I was the intruder. My PS5 had been moved. My computer was on. And then, I heard a man's voice from my bedroom. It wasn't a whisper, it was full voice. "You need to tell him, I can't keep hiding this," he said. I stood there staring. I couldn't move. I just processed what was happening. A stranger walked out of my bedroom like he belonged there. He was wearing my old hoodie. He didn't even act like he was doing something wrong. He looked at me and said, "Oh, you must be Ethan." That's how my Friday morning started. It was only going to get worse. I stood in the doorway, still processing what I was seeing. And then, Emma walked out of the bathroom. Hair tied up, no makeup, wearing my gym shorts and one of my oversized t-shirts. She saw me standing there and froze. We stared at each other for a few long moments. She didn't say anything. No hug, no "oh my God, you're back early." Just silence. Then she said, "You weren't supposed to be home until Sunday." As if that was the issue. Not the kid. Not the man in my room. Not the chaos. I pointed at the toddler. "Whose kid is that?" I asked. Emma didn't respond. I asked again, slower this time, "Whose kid is that?" And the man, her ex, finally spoke. "That's her son," he said. Her son. The child she'd never mentioned. Not once in the 10 months we'd been together. She never told me about him. Never mentioned her ex. And now they were both in my apartment while I was out of town. Emma immediately started packing, frantic. She was a mess. She muttered to herself, saying, "I can't believe this is happening." I told her to stop moving and start talking. She exploded. She started yelling at me, like I was the one who broke into her life. "I was going to tell you. I just needed time," she yelled. "You needed time to tell me you had a kid?" I asked. She kept rambling. "You treat relationships like job interviews. You would have left me if I'd told you." I snapped back, "Yeah, because you lied to me." That's when she completely lost it. She picked up the juice box the kid had been drinking and threw it at the wall. She missed, of course. But she knocked over my coffee table, my switch, and my controller. The room went chaotic. She screamed, "You always act like you're better than everyone." I just stood there, stunned. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't doing anything but watching her break everything. She stormed into the kitchen, slammed a cabinet open so hard it cracked the hinge, and then grabbed a bowl and threw it on the floor. It shattered. The kid was crying now. And her ex just sat there saying, "I told you this would happen." I stood there, my mind spinning, trying to process what had just happened. I turned back to Emma. "Did you really bring your ex and your kid to my apartment without telling me?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. She just kept packing, hands in her hair, muttering to herself. Finally, she stopped and looked at me. "Yes," she said, almost whispering. "That's your son, isn't it?" I pressed. She nodded. Her ex spoke up again. "I've been watching him most days," he said, almost nonchalantly. "While I've been out of town?" I asked. Emma didn't say anything. She just looked away. I was in complete shock. I couldn't believe what was happening. Emma's ex wasn't just staying at my apartment. He had been living there while I was gone. She hadn't told me about her son. She hadn't told me about her ex. She kept all of this from me for months. I was furious. I couldn't even look at her. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked her. She started to cry, her face twisted in frustration. "I didn't know how," she sobbed. "You didn't know how," I repeated. "Why hide it from me for so long?" Emma's meltdown intensified. She started screaming at me. "I didn't want to lose you." "You didn't want to lose me." I couldn't believe it. "You didn't tell me the truth, Emma. You lied to me." She continued to scream. She picked up the open juice box, threw it at the wall, and knocked over more stuff. It was like she had completely lost control. "I can't believe you're doing this to me," she shouted. "I don't have anywhere to go." Her ex didn't help the situation. He just sat there quiet, like he didn't care. He wasn't even trying to stop Emma from destroying my apartment. All I could do was watch. Emma's anger was growing by the second. She started throwing more things, breaking more of my belongings. "Stop," I shouted. But it didn't matter. She was too far gone. At that point, I couldn't handle it anymore. I told her she needed to leave. I told her to pack her things and get out of my apartment. She looked at me in disbelief. "You're kicking me out?" she asked. "Yes," I replied firmly. "Get out." She couldn't accept it. She started screaming about how unfair everything was. "You're just like all the other guys," she yelled. "None of you want to help me. You all leave." "I'm not leaving you," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "I'm just telling you that you need to leave. Now." Her ex started to stand up. "I'll take the kid," he said. Emma still wasn't listening. She was throwing clothes into bags now, yelling at me. She kept saying I was cold, that I didn't care. She was throwing more things around, still blaming me. "I'm not like everyone else," she screamed. "You don't understand." I couldn't take it anymore. Her actions were completely disrespectful. This wasn't love. This wasn't anything close to what I thought we had. I turned to her ex and asked, "Who are you exactly?" He looked at me and simply said, "I'm her ex, and I'm watching the kid now." I couldn't believe it. I just stood there, trying to process everything. They had been living in my apartment without my permission. She had been hiding it from me all along. I wasn't sure what to do next. Emma was still crying, still throwing things. She was completely out of control. I told her again to leave. She refused, saying she had nowhere to go. She was begging, pleading. But I didn't care anymore. I couldn't believe she had put me in this situation. I told her I was done. She kept crying and screaming, but I didn't move. It was over. She had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. This was the final straw. I made sure they both left that day. And when the door closed behind them, I felt a strange relief. It was over. And I wasn't going to let her back in. After Emma and her ex left, I locked the door behind them. I stood there, not knowing what to do next. The mess in my apartment was overwhelming. The damage was too much to ignore. The juice, the broken furniture, the toys scattered everywhere. My PS5, my controller, everything was wrecked. I could still feel the anger boiling inside me. But I knew I had to stay calm. I immediately grabbed my phone and started recording. I documented the damage, taking pictures of everything. I made sure to capture the broken plate, the cracked cabinet, the spilled juice. I took photos of the mess on my couch, my PS5 under the coffee table. I even recorded the time and date, making sure every detail was logged. I didn't want to miss anything that could help me later. I needed evidence. I walked through every room, taking pictures of the damage. The broken lamp, the spilled juice. The clothes Emma had thrown around. I could still smell the cheap body spray and diapers in the air. It was a reminder of everything I had just endured. Once I finished documenting, I started to think about what came next. I wasn't going to let this slide. I wasn't going to let Emma manipulate me into feeling sorry for her. She had crossed a line. And now, I was going to make sure there were consequences. I called my lawyer immediately. I explained everything that had happened. I told him about the damage, the unauthorized guests, and the mess Emma left behind. He didn't hesitate. "You have everything you need," he said. "You can take legal action. This is unauthorized occupancy and property damage." I didn't need more convincing. I had already made up my mind. I was going to handle this legally, without emotions getting in the way. I scheduled a locksmith to come change the locks. That same day, I had the locks replaced, no debate. I wasn't going to take any chances. I also filed a police report. I made sure to stick to the facts. Unauthorized use of my apartment, property damage, and unauthorized guests. I didn't want any confusion. I made sure everything was clear and concise. I knew Emma wouldn't take this lightly. She would probably try to reach out, but I wasn't going to respond. I was done with her. I wasn't going to let her back in. After the locksmith left, I sat down at my desk. I began to type out a detailed timeline of everything that had happened. I went over all the calls, texts, and messages we had exchanged. I went through my phone, screenshots in hand, making sure everything was documented. This wasn't just about the immediate damage. It was about making sure this never happened again. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how subtly she had worn down my boundaries. A sock here, a toothbrush there. A few nights turned into a few days. Next thing I knew, she had moved in without asking, without telling me. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I wasn't going to let her keep eroding my space, my life. By 4:00 p.m., the locksmith had finished. I paid him, tipped him well, and texted Mike. "Everything locked down," I told him. Mike texted back, "Good. That whole situation sounded like a fire drill, not a conversation." He wasn't wrong. That evening, Emma texted me. Her message was long, full of excuses and justifications. She said she didn't mean to lie, that she was just trying to protect her son. But I wasn't interested in her apologies. I didn't reply. I archived the message and saved a PDF copy for my records. I wasn't going to engage with her anymore. I knew the next step. I had to make sure this was dealt with legally. I wasn't going to let her back in. She had lost all access to me. The next day, I filed a formal police report online. It was all about the facts. Unauthorized occupancy, property damage, and the kid she left in my care without consent. I made sure everything was clear and precise. I didn't want to leave any room for doubt. Everything was documented. The mess, the damage, the unauthorized guests. I even mentioned her ex being in my apartment while I was out of town. The police officer who reviewed my report was impressed. He said it was the cleanest case file he'd seen in a while. He told me most people don't take the time to document everything. But I wasn't about to let this slide. I needed to cover all my bases. I wasn't just angry. I was determined to make sure she understood there were consequences for her actions. That evening, I sent her a formal cease and desist notice via email and certified mail. I had my lawyer draft it. The letter was short, professional, and to the point. It stated that she no longer had access to my apartment. She couldn't enter, retrieve any belongings, or use the keys I had given her. I even added a clause that any future attempts to enter the property would be treated as trespassing. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't playing around. This wasn't about emotions anymore. This was about protecting my space and my rights. I knew she'd be angry. I didn't care. I'd already done everything I needed to do to secure my property. I wasn't going to let her back in, no matter what. 2 days later, she texted me. It was a long message, filled with excuses. She said she was sorry, that she didn't know how to tell me about her son. She claimed she had only been trying to protect him. But I wasn't interested in hearing her apologies anymore. I'd heard enough. I didn't respond to her text. I wasn't about to let her manipulate me with guilt. That's exactly what she was trying to do. She thought if she apologized enough, I'd take her back. But I wasn't falling for it. I knew her game. I knew exactly what she was trying to do. A few days later, she showed up at my shop. I saw her standing outside from my office window. She didn't knock. She didn't say anything. She just stood there, waiting for me to make the first move. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. One of my guys came up to me and asked, "You want her gone?" I nodded. "She's not worth a confrontation," I told him. "Just ignore her." 10 minutes later, she was gone. I didn't have to say a word. I felt a strange sense of relief. The power she once had over me was gone. I wasn't worried about her showing up anymore. She couldn't manipulate me. I had taken control back. The next day, I filed a no trespass order with the sheriff's department. It wasn't a restraining order. Just a warning. If she showed up again, it would be grounds for charges. I didn't expect her to come back. But I wanted to make sure she knew I wasn't going to let her walk all over me again. I gave copies of the no trespass order to my lawyer and my business. I was done with the drama. I wanted to move on. I wanted peace. The next week, she texted me again. This time, it was a simple line. "You really left me with nothing." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I had already moved on. She was the one who had lost everything. Not me. I was secure. I was in control. And she had no way of getting back into my life. A few days later, I received the formal judgment. The court had ruled in my favor. Emma was ordered to pay for the damages she caused to my apartment. It felt like a small victory, but it wasn't over yet. She still had a chance to pay up. But I wasn't holding my breath. I knew she wouldn't make it easy. She had already shown me how far she was willing to go to manipulate. A week later, I got a message from her. It was a single line. "I don't have any money. Is there any way we can work something out?" I didn't bother to respond. I knew this wasn't an offer to negotiate. It was just another attempt to get me to back down. She wasn't going to get off that easy. I had already made up my mind. She could either pay what she owed or face the consequences. I wasn't going to let her guilt trip me into a deal. A few more days passed, and then I got a letter in the mail. It was from her. This time it was a payment plan. She wanted to pay $100 a month. I looked at the envelope and the letter inside. It was handwritten, messy, and filled with emotional pleading. None of the numbers added up. I could see right through her. She thought she could trick me again. But I wasn't having it. I opened the door, just enough to slide the deadbolt between us. She handed me the envelope, but I didn't let her in. I flipped through the paper quickly. It was a joke. I looked up at her and said, "No, this isn't a negotiation." She stared at me, her face crumpling with frustration. "You're really going to ruin me over this?" she asked. I shook my head. "You ruined yourself," I replied coldly. She started crying. She begged me to reconsider. But I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I simply closed the door in her face. The next step was unavoidable. I sent her the official demand letter through certified mail. It was clear, straightforward, and legally binding. She had 14 days to respond or else I would take further action. I wasn't going to let this drag on. I wanted this over with. 2 weeks later, I filed the paperwork. We had a court date scheduled. The day of the hearing arrived. I walked into the courtroom, feeling calm and confident. I was prepared. Emma showed up late, in a hoodie and with her hair in a bun. She looked like she thought this was some sort of therapy session. It was. It was a court of law. My lawyer presented all the evidence, photos, texts, and the itemized damages. She didn't deny anything. She didn't even try to defend herself. The judge didn't need much time to make a decision. "Did you stay in his apartment without written permission?" the judge asked. "Yes," she answered. "Well, then you owe him for damages," the judge said, cutting her off. There was no sympathy, no drama. Just the cold truth. The judgment was made. Emma had 30 days to pay me in full. If she didn't, wage garnishment would kick in. She didn't even try to fight it. She sat there, arms crossed, like she had already accepted defeat. After the hearing, I felt a strange sense of finality. This was the end. I had gotten what I needed. She wasn't going to manipulate me anymore. She wouldn't come back into my life. She had no more power. A few weeks later, I got confirmation that the judgment was being enforced. The court had contacted her employer. They were garnishing her wages. It was over. She had lost everything. And I hadn't lost a thing. I hadn't been dragged into a mess. I had handled it all calmly and legally. The last text she sent me was one final attempt to guilt-trip me. "You really left me with nothing," she said. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She had made her choices. And now, the consequences were hers to bear. As for me, I went back to my life, secure and in control. I knew I had handled everything the right way. I wasn't going to let anyone like her into my space again. I had learned my lesson. And I wouldn't make the same mistake twice. After everything settled, I felt a strange weight lift off my shoulders. The chaos was finally over. I had taken control of my life again. It wasn't about revenge or anger. It was about standing up for myself and setting boundaries. I learned the importance of protecting my space, my peace. Emma's manipulation didn't work. She thought I would cave, but I didn't. I kept my cool, and in the end, I was the one who came out on top. I made sure I wouldn't repeat the same mistake again. From now on, everything would be documented. No more letting people slip into my life without proper boundaries. I took the settlement money and replaced everything she damaged. I upgraded my apartment and added more security. I even put clauses in my insurance to cover future incidents. Life went back to normal. My business was thriving, and I was free of the drama. I learned a lot from this experience. I realized that calmness isn't weakness, it's strength. When you stay patient and act strategically, everything falls into place. And now, I can sleep without fear, knowing that I won't be blindsided again. That's how I moved on. And it felt good.